Ooh, baby.
My emergency contact, or who is it that I will want somebody to call in case something happens. And I in any other case, I would have to reach out to my husband. And so I had to start thinking about like who my emergency contact would be. And my emergency contact, I put my son down as my emergency contact. In the past, I listed my husband as my emergency contact. So I started thinking and saying, um, you know, maybe I should just marry who is my emergency contact.
Ooh, baby. Listen, today is going to be an interesting conversation because we're gonna chop it up. We're gonna have some real conversation about, I guess, talking, about real stuff in terms of would you rather be alone or would you rather choose someone who, you're not necessarily, not necessarily feeling, but you know what, they're there. You know, they're there. Would you rather be alone in the latter days, or would you rather be with somebody who, might just be there for you, but you know what, you don't necessarily love them? You know what I'm saying to you? It's a real conversation. And, we're in a generation now where there's a lot of things happening within our generation. People talking about touch starvation, not being able to have, you know, physical contact. I'm gonna play another video for you guys. Physical contact, not having a hug, not having somebody, just be there for you. You know what I mean? So it is a tough season people are in, and some real conversations are going to be had today. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you like, you share, you subscribe, you click on that bell button for the notification of the uploads as well. All right, we'd love for you guys to help us reach 100K by the end of the year. Subscribe. You guys are helping. The numbers are going up astronomically, so I really do appreciate that as well. But yeah, let's get into some conversation. I'm joined by Jay and by Charlene today, and we're gonna have a real deep conversation. I can tell already, because this topic is one that will touch, maybe some nerves and touch a little bit of pain and hurt that people have. But before we get to that particular conversation, there's two other topics I want us to just quickly broach. One is David Beckham and Victoria Beckham, because in the UK there was warfare that was to be had. Okay, the ladies went at it, the men went at it, everybody was going at it because there was an argument about whether David Beckham was going to be this big, huge star that he is now, or that he was then, without Victoria Beckham. Could he be this global brand? Could he be what we know Beckham to be now without Victoria? It's Victoria that made him the man that he is. So we'll have a conversation about that. And of course, you've already watched my video earlier on, but if you haven't, fantastic, great. You'll be fresh to this conversation. Jada Pinkett Smith dropped her, well, I don't want to say she even dropped anything, but she did an interview which is going to be airing out on Friday. And it so seems that she has let us know that her and Will have been separated for 7 years. It's not great. So there's a lot to discuss. So before we go into our main subject and main topic, we're gonna talk about these two side gigs first. Let's talk about the David Beckham one, because we're in the UK. It's a different, I guess, ball game when you when it comes to football, especially as well, soccer for those who are in America. When it comes to someone like David Beckham, and the story behind this situation, if you don't know, guys, is that with David Beckham is a global football star, and his wife is Victoria Beckham, a global superstar musician. She was part of Spice Girls. And recently a Netflix documentary dropped, and it inspired conversations in the UK. And the question was, did Victoria make David Beckham who he is today? And that's a question that was being said around the internet. So I want to get you guys and ladies, thoughts on this. Jay, what's your thoughts on this, Captain? Oh, you're on mute, bro. Sorry.
I don't know why I keep on doing that, but
it's okay, bro.
Yeah. How you doing, chat? How you doing, Coach? How you doing, Charlene? David Beckham. you know, this to me is a hard one to bottom out, simply because David Beckham was a superstar in the UK specifically, and he was known, you can say probably around for America, it'll be the soccer fraternity as one of the actual superstars of football. So he already was someone. Now, as we know, in a football game, only very few people go global anyway, where everybody just knows who they are. And Victoria Beckham was already someone because of Spice Girls, but although Spice Girls were big, I would say as an individual, Beckham was more. Beckham was greater. Beckham had more to him, more star power, everything. But it seems when they got together, both their star powers shot completely through the roof. And what I would say is Victoria Beckham's star power began to overshadow him. And I say that even up to now, because when it comes to fashion, when it comes to the look, when it comes to how people feel about their marriage, it's more so really based on how, you know, how can I say, Victoria Beckham molded him. Because he was just an East London boy from where I'm from, around the way. That this, how he is now isn't how he was when he was younger. So I would say at different stages, they both had that, you know, that level of being made. But I can understand how, you know, people in America, they look at it as, no, like Victoria Beckham was always the queen. She made him. I can understand that based on, you know, they might not know who Beckham is, but it's a difficult one because I look at it as coming together, they became that great power couple that went through all the struggles. The papers wanted to see both of them, not just one, wanted to see both of them. So that's me.
Good points. Charlene, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm in the 1 + 1 = 11 camp, you know, where they're a married couple and that's the nature of synergy, you know, 1 + 1 = 11. And so I don't know why it would be a question of, did she make him big? I just think that they both rose to even more fame because of each other.
I think it's quite interesting, right? Because I think you know, with someone like David Beckham, I think the reason why the argument actually ensued is because I think, and maybe this can be my biased point of view because as a man, I watch sports, right? But the argument was actually assumed because I think there was a tweet that was made, and that really galvanized both sides to kind of have a discussion, which probably turned into carnage. But and the tweet was really kind of focusing on the fact that without Victoria, Beckham isn't Beckham, and I think where the pushback happens is not realizing just how big football is. Like football is global. I'm talking about. I watched a video the other day of a white man going into a village on the water in Nigeria, and he's watching sports. Like he's watching football. You get what I'm saying to you? I'm not saying that music isn't as global. Music is global. It's everywhere. But just saying how football as a brand, like I don't think, and it's me being biased again, I don't even think NFL or NBA have the same reach. Like the way that soccer is global, like everybody plays it, no matter where you are, you play some level of sport. So, and when you talk about something like the World Cup, the viewership that it has is crazy all at one time. So it's like you can't miss if someone becomes a brand in Europe, they become a household name in Europe. He was that. To go global would have been when he went to the World Cup. End up getting sent off. We hear that he's getting, you know, there's a stupidness in 1998. And at that time, right? So he's already on the rise to stardom already. Let's say he never marries Victoria Beckham. I think he would still be a global star. I think the brand of Beckham would look considerably different, but he'd still be a global star because the moves that he makes in the end are football moves, right? Because he was one of the first people to able to transfer, of course, to fashion. But I think what people had an issue was that whether she made him, he was already. If you watch the documentary, he was already edging there. He had started buying cars, he had started buying watches, he had started buying clothes. He was buying jeans that were more expensive than his paycheck. Like he was already going there. Where Victoria comes in and where she cannot be underestimated is that not only was she a global star, but she also, and I think you were mentioning this, Jay, as well, and Charlene, you can touch on this, is that it's the curation of the brand. So like the brand that they have as Beckham now, right, doesn't exist without having Victoria in it. You know what I mean? Like, of course, Beckham will always be Beckham and his name will always be, but like we take Beckham now as two. We see you, we see Victoria. You see Victoria, you see Beckham. You know what I mean? And I never want to underestimate the amount of peace, the amount of stressless. Okay, because in the documentary he completely stresses every time the importance of how he would even travel 4 hours. He would drive from Manchester to London, go out and see this babe, and go and play a game the next day and win. So I can never underestimate how her role in the relationship also helped him to be able to have a base to build from. He would have been global, but maybe not in the same vein and fashion. A family man is always going to have an edge. Politicians always have families, right? Because they need to sell something, i.e., quote, quote. So for me personally, you can't have Beckham without having Victoria. He would have still been global, but we never want to underestimate the amount of stuff that Victoria did and allowed him to be. You know what I mean? Any opposing views or different views? Go for it,
Well, I
Charlotte.
was going to say that the other thing to consider is the fact that the Spice Girls market is teenage girls, right? Primarily. And football's market is 90%, 95% dudes.
Yeah.
So their markets are diametrically opposed. These teenage girls ain't going to the game, and them dudes ain't going to the Spice Girls concert. So the two of their demographics combined, that is the reason why they've been able to elevate globally, because now we've got both markets. And then obviously the teenage girls' parents who are really buying the things, the merchandise, the music and everything else. So you've got the women, the older women, you've got the younger girls, and you've got the older men and the younger boys. That's everybody. It's pretty genius when you think about it. If it was calculated, it's pretty genius. I don't think it was, but I'm just saying if. You know what I mean?
No. Good point. Good point. What are you saying, Jay?
I agree with both of you. This is a unique situation where, in fact, I understand why in the conversation, in the climate that we're in, why many people would say, no, she made him. I fully understand because of the climate that we're in. But the truth is, it was two people coming together who, where they was in their lives at that moment in time, it was only going to be great from there. You know, it wasn't, you know, where one had to clean up someone's image or anything like that, or one had to better the other person. It was both were great and both came together. And actually, this is an example of two great people coming together and building a superstar brand perfectly and dealing with the controversy perfectly as well. Of course, we know there's certain things that did happen during their marriage, but the way they've dealt with it is just, you know, it's admirable. You know, married. Well, we're going to discuss all this with Jada later, but you know, marriage is not easy, right? And people go through things, but the way they've built their brand and they've protected it, despite all of that, this is admirable. That's why I can't agree with anyone saying that Victoria made him or Victoria was the bigger person. But it does depend what side of the pond you was on. It does depend what you was interested in. I mean, if we went to Africa and David Beckham was walking around, people would recognize him, but it wouldn't necessarily recognize Victoria. So that's you know, really depends where you are. So yeah, this is a unique situation. I mean, this isn't. I mean, some people might want to talk about Beyonce and Jay-Z. You know, Beyonce did a video the other day. In fact, it wasn't the other day. This was in 2008, but it's just come out now, where she said Jay-Z taught her to be a woman, and you know, ladies weren't happy with that. But I understand the context of why she's saying that. She was a superstar, but she was saying it in a private context. So to me, relaying that to David Beckham and Victoria, I would say in a private context, they really did sharpen up each other in a very, like, in a great way. You know what I mean? But their public image, their public everything, there was no who was, this was just, to me, a perfect match made in heaven, ironically.
Yeah, and I think also, and I think Charlene brought a great point. Two different audiences that they speak to. And I think you're absolutely right. You got two superstars coming together, and two superstars and coming together, and just kind of exploding. You know what I mean? And it working out for the best for both of them because of because of the way he really loved her, right? And it's interesting because I think like I said, the argument on, especially on Twitter and social media, was it became because people are saying that someone made someone else. And it's like, no one could make anybody else. He can't make Victoria because she was already on the way. The reason why he even wanted her is because she was already part of Spice Girls, right? The only reason why she came in time of day is because he was a baller. Now, she said she didn't like football. That's great. But you know what that means? Status. So none of them would have looked at each other and given each other a sniff of a hint. In fact, more than likely, she would have never given a sniff of a hint because she comes from a more upper class family. So he might not even have got a look in. You understand? Had he not been who he is, right? So both parties needed to be something, to be able to even spot the other person. But yeah, both of them were global brands. Were becoming on the road to becoming global brands way before they actually met. And had they never met, Victoria would be Victoria, Beckham would be Beckham. You know what I mean? And they would have their respectable histories because before they met, I knew both of them. I knew Victoria because I listened to Spice Girls. I loved pop at the time, and I knew also Beckham because I love football at the same time. And I remember when they got together, and I was like, "Raw, like these two got together," and the frenzy that the press went into, and I think that just speaks again to how people really, whether they like it or not, are always invested in couples and married folk, whether they want to admit it or not. They love seeing it, whether it goes wrong or whether it goes right. They are invested in some shape or form, and that was a prime example between David Beckham, and Victoria. Person as well. And I just want to put this point here. What's Victoria's last name?
Yeah, original one.
What's her last name?
I don't even know,
I don't know either. Listen, if you're a man out there, I just want to tell you
Victoria
straight.
Posh Spice. Everyone knows that.
The point I'm actually making is it's not actually a dig at the women. It's actually an indictment for men to say, make sure you do something of worth, because that name now covers them both. But she can be happy to take the name because it's a powerful name now, right? Because both of them have done work underneath that brand of a name. Do you get what I'm saying to you? And he had a good reputation before he came in. So that name now holds weight. If you hear the name Beckham, you think, wow. Even if it's Romeo or whatever, he has other children too. You know, Beckham. You know what I mean? So, having a good name is important, and that is something that both of them have invested in. Even though he was he was being loose with Rebecca Loose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Any other thoughts on that before we change it to Jada?
No, I think you all agree, but because of the channel that you have to put into context. Rebecca Luce is a woman that was alleged had the affair with. Well, at least one anyway.
The other one's never got caught. Good on him. So that brother hid his skills well. But no, joke aside, we're going to talk about Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith, a complete opposite of what we see with David Beckham. The name is got power. The name has weight. The name, apologies, has some heritage to it, some legacy to it. But the behavior of the two, the people involved at the moment in this marriage, is kind of peak. You know what I mean? So let's have a conversation about that. Jada Pinkett Smith just recently came out, dropped a video. I will play a little clip for you guys so you can see. And she had this to say about the situation. Okay, let's. Oh,
that surprised me the most, that I actually had to reread it because I said, is this true?
Right.
was that in 2016, you and Will decided that you were going to live completely separate lives.
Yes.
It was not a divorce on paper,
Right.
but it was a divorce. So from the year 2016, which is 7 years ago now,
Yes.
y'all have been apart.
Yeah.
There's
Well, what y'all think? What y'all think? What y'all think about a supermodel? Jada Pinkett Smith, what's your ideas, guys? What you guys think? Because this is not the only thing that happened. Obviously, she released this information about the Chris Rock situation.
Yeah, I've been following it quite closely today.
Okay.
I've got so many things to say, but firstly, I am tired of the oversharing. I really am. I think that they share too much about their private lives. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I actually respect how they've gone about this separation and the fact that they are in the public eye. They're a commodity. Everybody monetizes content about them, but they somehow managed to keep this under wraps, not for a little bit, for 7 years. I respect the lengths that they went to keep this private. And I think that I understand the oversharing, but I'm still tired of it. But I understand it because when it comes to your own narrative, you got to get in front of it from a PR perspective. And so it behooves you to write a memoir and go on a press tour rather than have people tell your story. You tell your story. But the only thing that surprises me really is the fact that they're living separately. Because when they were on Red Table Talk, they did talk about staying in the same house no matter what. So that's the only bit that surprises me really. But yeah, for 7 years, if she's moved out or he's moved out, whatever it is, 7 years ago, that means that they were having problems way before that. You don't just wake up one day and move out. Moving out is a pretty big move, pretty big deal. So I'm just wondering how long they've been in trouble for before they even, physically separated. And perhaps they tried to live together under the same roof, but live separate lives. Who knows? But yeah, those are my thoughts so far.
I remember the open marriage rumor starting in like the year 2000s, not the year 2000, but the year 2000. So I would say whatever has been going on with them has been going on for a very long time. I would even say probably even in the late 90s. We're going to get married, I think it was 97 or 96 or something like that. But even in the late 90s, so I feel like they've had dysfunction for the majority, of their marriage, before the kids, during the kids, and after. Look at the way that they are. But my view is, I wouldn't say I have respect for their privacy. I'll say I have confusion, because the best thing you could have done is come out and say, guys, we're separated. Then you can do, again, whether people believe you're married until you're divorced or whether people don't, is by the way. Just at the end of the day, if they wanted to do their own thing, it's entirely up to them, right? That would have been a better thing to say, instead of going on Red Table Talk and just saying things to us that we just didn't need to know. All that to me was unnecessary. I don't blame Jada for the release of the information about August, because that was August opening up his mouth. But how she, I guess you can say, justified it, or how she spoke on it, didn't help the cause whatsoever, right? But I see it as if they had come out and said, ladies and gentlemen, we are separated, like many other couples do. I know some couples don't. It would have made a lot of things that happen easier to digest. But now that we know this information, people are going to ask questions. So why did Will hit Chris Rock? Okay, well, also today, now we know, okay, could have been in that situation. you know, was he still feeling something because of that situation? However, he got up there and said, leave my wife's name. Yeah, that is his wife, but you're separated. So to me, that what she said today to me is a nonsense anyway, because you still have a man that's referring to you as his wife. You still have a man that's willing to show I'm protecting you. You still have a man that's willing to sit there with you and allow you to tear him down. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't. I'm not saying Will Smith is a victim here. They're both victims, but I'm just looking at it from the point of view as this is an absolute mess. It makes no sense to me. Absolutely no sense what they're doing, how they're going about things, because it's just mess after mess after mess after mess. And I will be reading Jada's books. I want to understand where she's coming from. I want to understand the history. I want to understand more than I already do. But this is just a confusing mess, which doesn't make sense, whichever way you look at it, for me anyway.
Charlene?
Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this, that whenever there is a media story or politics or anything of that nature, I always look out for the following. Who have they painted to be the villain? Who have they painted to be the victim? And who have they painted to be the hero? And in this case, it was really interesting to see how they really villainized Jada in this whole scenario. And like, I've read comments where they're saying things like, poor Will, and he needs to, you know, you need help, and da, da, da. And I'm just like,
Charlene, you're gone.
can you hear me?
You can hear now. You went for a second.
Yeah, I was saying that separation is so complex. It's especially when you've got decades under your belt. And so you're still going to have those same feelings as if you weren't separated. He's still going to call her his wife. He's still going to have those instincts to protect her. And I think that those things are perfectly natural. But trying to unknit union that has lasted decades is complicated. And I heard a comment earlier where someone was saying that he's in a loveless marriage. I don't think it is loveless. I think that's the reason, one of the reasons why it's so complex. And unfortunately, because she has been labeled as the villain, I don't think she can do anything right in the public's eyes at the moment. That's just my personal observation.
Fair point. Go for it, Jay.
I would agree on the end bit with what Charlene said, because it's how most people feel about Derek, right? There's nothing he's going to say that people are going to be like, okay. People are going to use every angle to call him all types of keywords. So I do understand. I think Charlene's right, that she is the villain in this situation. And what I would say also is, as a woman, there is, I mean, there's always going to be a vim for a man, but you have to also understand there's certain women that get the same type of vim because of who they are. And for those in America, when I say vim, I mean a certain type of energy, a certain type of oomph, negative energy, you know, where people talk. It's just, but to me, it just goes back to the same point. What we know is because of Jada. Will has done his dirt, but we don't know anything. We can only speculate, but at the same time, we're speculating to go where exactly. All we can say is, yeah, he must have done his dirt too. I'm not saying he went to go and date people, because he did, but I'm talking about actual dirt, things that would make us say, like, Will, how did you do that to your wife? Or why did you? We don't know none of that. All we know is what Jada did. And so when you yourself put your information out there, because before the Red Table Talk, all people had was just rumors. Apart from the August issue, you know, she's chosen to put it out there. So of course, people are going to talk about it. People are going to ask questions. People are going to think, what on earth is going on? So for me, if what you're putting out there I mean, we're all wise people, right? We can assume. So you should know what you're going to put out there is going to make you look a certain way. So to me, if you're happy seeming like the villain, then embrace it. Embrace it. People are going to say why. No one has to be okay with what you do. All you can do is say, yeah, I did it. Maybe this is the reason why, and leave it there. No one has to be okay. But that's why I'm choosing to say, all right, when Jada releases a book, I'm going to read it and understand where she's coming from. Not to endorse what she's doing, but just simply to understand her behavior. Because quite simply for me, yeah, there may be some sort of love there, but this was a dysfunction from the very beginning. If you understand attachment styles, if you understand when people get together when they haven't healed, this was always going to go down this road. The surprise for me is that they haven't gone their separate ways. You know, this is that's the surprise to me, because so much has happened in between. You would have thought, okay, I need to leave this in order to heal, but I think Charlene said the complexities, the attachment that people have to a person, to a situation, is way more bigger than what some people are willing to realize. Like, attachment is really a killer, especially if you come with trauma.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a truth in there. You know that oftentimes in these relationships, women can be villainized for their role in a demise of a relationship, good or bad. I guess in a situation between Will and Jada, at the very beginning there was some villainy because we didn't really realize 100% that they were separated. So some of the commentary was biased in that particular aspect and very heated. I think once people realized that, and it was more about then her behavior in terms of with August Alsina and kind of latching on him as he was for a codependency kind of aspect. I think what I see with Jada is that she has a tendency to put her foot in her mouth. And I'm starting to realize that it's not by mistake. And I'll tell you something why. I remember I talked to a lady some weeks back, and I was talking about a situation and past relationship. She said to me outright, "Oh, we know what we're doing. Like, for instance, when we know that guy, we don't respect him anymore. We know exactly what we're doing." And I just sat there and I was like, and I had to deep it. Jada knows what she's doing. This is not a one-time only offense. There are several instances where she just says stuff that just don't need to be said. So much so that I rarely hear I can't remember any time Will has said something about the relationship where it's brought the relationship into disrepute. Now, I'm not saying that people are doing stuff behind the scenes. Oh, people are doing things behind the scenes. There's been rumors always about Will, whether he's gay, whether he's doing with Margot Robbie, whether he's with other women as well. There has always been rumors about even Dwayne from what's her name's ex or whatever for for Martin. Yeah, there's always been those things, right? But they've been just that, rumors, unsubstantiated rumors, which by all means, could be absolutely true. I wouldn't even try to fight it, but it's not substantiated. But then Jada will come out and say something, and you're just like, are you not thinking about how this is going to look, how it's going to sound, how this may play out, how people are going to view it? And that's where she ends up becoming a villain in a lot of cases, right? Because even with the August Alsina situation, she talked about the entanglement. She didn't make herself aware that, oh, hold on a minute, he was sick. This might look some bad way. No, it was more that I had to get what I had to get. She said I had to get what I had to get. And it felt good to get what she got. Cool. But now you got to be accountable because you hold everybody to a particular standard on red table. So I think sometimes women do get a bad press, and I'll be honest with you, they do sometimes. When it comes to relationships and divorces and marriage, people will jump on it in very very quickly. But it just looks like after a while, I've got to ask myself a key question: how many times, Jada, are you going to put your foot in it before I start saying what you're doing is very intentional? And as someone said there, she's tired of covering for him. that's it, because she's lost respect for him, because how I feel is that the love, she's not in love with him. She may have love for him, but is no longer in love with him, and they have the history of, like I said, her eyes being elsewhere. So not necessarily cheating wise, but eyes were in terms of not necessarily wanting to be with Will from the very jump in terms of marriage. So yeah, I don't know if Charlene wanted to kind of hit back and add. Oh,
Did you call on me, bro?
I was just saying, if you want, I don't know if you had anything else to add. Sorry.
Yes, because I think, I don't think Jada is as calculated as that. I don't think you were calling her calculated. Let me retract that. I don't think she's as cognizant as that. I think that because I've watched Red Table Talk, and I remember the episode where they were discussing August, and I remember what she said prior to her and Will sitting down. And she basically said, let's bring these issues here for healing. I remember that phrase. And I think I get the impression that she likes to put things on the table to discuss them for healing. And I also get the impression that, particularly with the August situation, that it had been years since it had happened, that her and Will had time to process it, talk about it. And now the nation has just caught up with this revelation, right? And I think in her mind, she wants to use it as an opportunity for healing. That seems to be in line with her personality and some of the things that she says. But I do think that it's just naive, because people like the villain, victim, hero story. They love it. In fact, they want to know who you are. Are you the villain or are you the victim? And she just doesn't do herself any favors. And I'm wondering, with the August situation, how much of it was out there and verified to where she felt like it kind of forced her hand a little bit, where she felt like she needed to now speak about it. I'm wondering about that too. So yeah, I don't know. I think she's just talked too much. Just talk too much. It's too much. But yeah, that's it.
I think it was August that mentioned it in a video. In an interview out the blue, and yeah, she just came to clear it up, because that was random for people. Although they were snapped at award shows in different places, there wasn't rumors out there about them two. But because he said it the way he said it, because he was still recovering from a broken heart, he was still healing from it. That's what made people say, "Whoa, hold on a minute," and then Jada came out of it. But as you were both speaking, something actually dawned on me. She has this platform, Red Table Talk, right? But not once has she mentioned about anything that Will has done to her. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't watch every single episode. But not once do I remember anything being said where she said, Will did this to me, he was doing this to me, he was treating me this way. And maybe she's using it as an excuse or justification to go and do whatever she wants to do. I've not heard her say anything about Will. So then that leads me to say, I'm not saying Will was perfect, but in the dynamics of their marriage, or whatever we want to call what they have, how Will was complicit in staying in their toxicity, but is he an equal partner in, what can I say, in mistreating someone? Because she's never come out and ever said Will's mistreating me. She said Will's spoken about how he felt, and she said, yeah, I know, I'm a messed up person. And that's her vantage point. Because when we talk about accountability, her vantage point is coming like Tyrese and a little bit like Derrick Jackson. I'm a messed up person. Have grace for me. I don't really want to be this person, but this is me. I'm just giving you how I feel. I'm just giving you my thoughts. So as I'm saying that, I'm like, yeah, honestly, she has never come out and said anything. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall her saying anything. And that's also something for me that's a bit strange. You know, if your marriage was one where you both were just being reckless, part of the healing is to come out and say, this is how you hurt me. But she's never done that. Her saying, let's put it on the table for healing was purely for Will Smith's healing. So that's the question I would have.
Yeah, I think you got a good point there. She never has. She's never come out and said, Will slept with this person, this person, this person. The only thing that I can remember was right at the end of the conversation where they were talking about August. Will said, I'm going to get you back. And Jada said, you already have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So I understand that to be that he's already dipped out. They've been separated. He's been sleeping with other women. And that he intends to do more. But they didn't go into detail. But yeah, it's interesting because I think even if she was to come out and say, Will Smith slept around on me with these women, people would still class her as the villain. And, I'm just like, gosh. But I also don't think that she's a point scorer. The clips that I've seen today, she's spoken about the fact that she took a vow that they were not going to divorce no matter what. That doesn't sound like somebody that's going to try and score points and try and even the score. Yeah. That's it.
Well, we'll say, Joe, I agree with actually, Charlie, but I forgot to refer to something that Kojo was saying as well when it comes to, I guess, whether she's properly cognizant in what she's saying. This also reminds me of, I don't know how many guys are in the chat, but Kojo, you would have definitely experienced this, where it could be a girl, or let's say it's an ex, and the way she's talking about a guy from the past, you can tell there's no respect there. But she doesn't see it that way. She might see it as I'm expressing how I feel or whatever the case may be. But when she speaks, you're looking at that, huh? So is that the way you're going to speak about me? Is that like, rah, like, did you address those things with him? Did you, is this how you spoke when you was actually with him? And this is what it kind of reminds me of, where she's expressing as she needs to do, as she's allowed to do. She's expressing, this is my story, this is my truth, and that's what she's about, right? Red Table Talk is about truth on the table. But I don't think whether it's the level of love that needs to be there, I don't know, but definitely the respect is not there enough for her to hold back and say, maybe I shouldn't have said that. And by the way, there's so much more that they probably haven't said, to be honest with you. We don't know everything. But for me, I'm just thinking, but all the things that have been said, knowing how the public feel, knowing how they feel about you and how they feel about the marriage, and I'm still continuing to throw these things out there and then trying to clear it up later, you can't be that stupid. You can't be. There comes a point where you have to realize, and that's for all of us, by the way, public or privately, we just need to keep our mouth shut. But she got a book coming out, she has to sell it, she knows this is what people want to hear. This is her brand. She doesn't act anymore. This is her brand. So she's doing what she feels she needs to do to sell. And I guess, I don't know if Will has endorsed it or not, or whether he has no say. I don't know. Even a comment at the end of it, I'm going to get you back, makes no sense. If you're separated, what's the get back for? Unless he got back with her friend, or I don't know. It's a mess. But yeah, there's so many more questions that I'm now having because of our conversation. That all I keep thinking is, this is actually, I won't say it's a calculated mess, but it's a mess none of them are willing to step away from, and they just keep digging. She more specifically keeps verbally digging the hole. But let's just see. Once the book is released, we're all going to digest it. She's going to do more interviews. Let's see what happens a year from now.
But you know something, though? I just have this sense that I can't imagine that they wouldn't have discussed what they're going to say to the public before it gets said. I've just seen like little things. I remember, you know how people were reacting to Will Smith's face when they were on the red table, and they were saying that his eyes were puffy and red and that he looked, I don't know, browbeaten and disrespected. And it turned out that it was something completely different, that he wasn't upset in the slightest because they had dealt with it and processed it and talked about it. And then there are other times. There was Will Smith, he was in an interview with Oprah, where he says that if he utters a sentence to Jada, it's a 3-hour conversation. I just can't imagine, based on those things that I've seen, that Jada's just, I think she's naive about how it will be seen by the public, but I don't see her as this loose cannon that is just flapping her lips without her and Will discussing it first. I just can't see it. That will speak or answer that.
I mean, listen, I'm sure there has been a lot of coordinated conversations, I would say. I think to myself that at what point then does the PR team not say to them, let's get Jada to stop talking then? Because clearly it's not working. You know what I'm saying to you? Like, it's not working. If Jada keeps coming out and saying stuff that's not aiding, like for instance, this Cross Rock situation, I'm guessing that's probably going to be in a book. That's probably why it's probably even come out or whatever, right? Or she said it on an interview. I don't know whichever one came first. It's like, surely the PR people should be like, wait, hold on, you guys are meant to be doing a united front. Why is Jada announcing we've been separated for 7 years separately? How does that aid the brand? The whole point of the reason why you haven't said anything is because the brand is meant to be important. Well, this goes against the brand. You coming out and saying separately, we've been separated for 7 years by yourself is not a united front. And already, if you've got a good PR team, they're going to tell you this is going to look bad statistically. This is going to come out, and this is how oftentimes people are going to react to the situation. So we probably should put even Derek Jackson understood this. We probably should put a united front on. Both of you come out, do the interview together, whatever, and then Will, you maybe Will even let Will do it. Will, you know what? You say it because we know that you got a good rapport, you got a good reputation. If you say it, people are not gonna go against Jada. You can cover her by saying it. No, it hasn't been done. Then I have to also ask the question whether either you're not paying your money to your PR, which I can't believe, or also I think also knowing how Will is, he allows her autonomy to do whatever. So long as it makes her happy, he's willing to give her autonomy, right? So, for me, it's like, I think it maybe not intentional, but it's intentional because you get to do whatever you want to do and you're not thinking about what you're saying and how you're kind of saying it and how it's being delivered. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, for instance, her saying 7 years we've been separated, it's not a big deal. It's only a big deal the fact that because, again, Jada's got a history and how people already view her, saying it on an interview without Will just looks a certain way. Because obviously that was in the book. So that was in the book already. So that was what it was. It's not like she just pulled it out of the hat. It was in the book. But it's like, that's where it's going to be a little bit tricky. You know what I mean? I think there should be, someone needs to grab them both, pull them in and say, listen, stop this nonsense. Listen, either we're doing it united as a front or we ain't doing this united stuff at all. Can't do both. Choose. Because when you're talking, you're not doing a good job. You know what I mean? That's what I would say. Someone said she's tired of being bashed. That's probably true. She's gonna get bashed some more though because she ain't thought about what she just said.
Do you know what I agree with though? Before I know Precious, I want to hear what you have to say. I feel like Will should have been the one to come out and actually make these things plain and clear. He should have gained back his respect. I'm not even saying from Jada. I'm saying publicly, although he can say he doesn't care about us. That's no problem. But he's still a global superstar, right? People still need to want to go and see him in the cinema. So to me, as a man, he should have come out and said, guys, we haven't been completely honest, but we have been separated for the past 7 years. Yes, everything that we've discussed has happened during that time. We haven't dealt with it in the best way, but that's just the way we have dealt with it and left it there. We'll still be talking about it, but there'll be a different level of respect that we now have for Will, and it will give context to Jada. Because at the end of the day, if you're saying to a person who is in the mental and emotional and in the, let's just call it the trauma place that she's in, and you're giving her license to go and do her own thing, most of the time they're going to do their own thing because it's still part of finding themselves or finding what makes them happy, even though it's probably not. So if he came out and gave that context properly, because I know they mentioned on the red table and said, I was done with you, etc. But as a man, if he came out properly and said it, you know, that even would have eased some of the blows that Jada's got. Because right now the energy is Jada's the problem. She's always been the problem. I mean, from a mature mind, you know that, okay, there's both things going on here. But I just don't feel Will has really stepped up the way he's supposed to, at least in the protection of her and the protection of his brand. But is he going to? Has he been hurt in such a way that he doesn't feel that that's his job? Although it's confusing because he's still done it in other ways. But to me, that was more to do with him rather than to do with Jada.
No, I hear the both of you. I do.
Precious, you want to go? Sorry, I thought you were going to go. My bad, Precious. Good to see you.
Good to see you. No, I think a lot of it is, it's interesting when I think about it, actually, because I think the main reason people see Will Smith as a victim is because he's quiet, not because he's really a victim in the situation. But a lot of it's, I don't know. I think we wouldn't even really be having this conversation if the slap didn't happen. I think a lot of this that's coming out is in response to that. I also feel that's why Will Smith can't really say much, because I think what we kind of forget is that the only people that actually care about Will and Jada's marriage like that are Black people. The majority of the world does not care. They don't care. They only started to care because of the slap, and then that died. The general public doesn't really care. And we have to remember that, as Jay said, Will Smith is a global superstar. He's not just aiming at us. He's aiming at the rest of the world who saw him get up on stage and slap somebody. And so I think sometimes when we're looking at these things, we have to remember that their audience isn't us specifically, not really anyway. Maybe Jada, can dabble here and there because she's got the Red Table Talk. But even when you look at the Red Table Talk, a lot of the people that she had on Red Table Talk were not Black. It was a few times she had like big Black, prominent people on there, but it was always in relation to somebody who wasn't part of the Black culture anyway. So I think we have to remember that a lot of this narrative isn't made for the people who really, truly, truly are emotionally invested, who went years going, I want the Will and Jada love. The majority of the world didn't really, they saw them as like a really, happy couple, great family, good looking family, all of that stuff. But when they were thinking about, they weren't thinking about Will and Jada, they were thinking about Will Smith. And then they may have thought about Jada Pinkett Smith. But it was never Will and Jada for the majority of the world. So I think that's an important thing to remember. But when it comes to, their relationship, I honestly think if they had been honest at that Red Table Talk and then that they had and said, look, we've been separated since 2016. This is what happened. We're trying to figure out our partnership and where we're going. We're trying to figure out what we want, how we want our relationship to look like. I think a lot of people would have been a lot more forgiving. I think they would have had a little fun, but they would have been more forgiving. And I think they probably would have paid more attention to the whole entanglement thing. I think that's why a lot of the information that they'd already kind of said in that video kind of was ignored because they would have been so bothered about the entanglement thing. They didn't really actually pay attention to what was said in the video. But I think if they had used that specific moment to say, look, we've been separated from 2016, we're figuring it out. We don't really know what's going to happen. Will we get back together? Maybe. Will we not? Probably. But we're in this together to be a family and have that sort of, you know, thing with each other, because we're both not trying to get married again. So what's the point of getting divorced? We're just gonna be us. And people probably would have questioned it, but they probably would have took it more, I guess, in stride with everything that was happening, rather than just randomly out of nowhere coming out and saying, "Oh, by the way, we're separated." But because of everything that's happened with the slap and the way that Will Smith was put to the cross in a way with the rest of the world, not just us, because most Black people were like, I mean, you weren't wrong. Most Black people defended Will Smith's actions, but it was everybody else who is the people who make his money that had a problem. And that's why it was such an issue. And I think the book, the whole thing, all of this stuff is to appeal to them. It's to let them know, look, this is me. This is the side of Will Smith you guys don't know. I think a lot of people who are big Will Smith fans know he had a difficult relationship with his parents. They know about his tough stuff with his wife. Shirley down the road doesn't know that. And that's who he's trying to get to. That's who he's trying to, you know, talk to. That's who Jada is trying to talk to. She's not trying to talk to the Black community. And I think when you take into consideration all the sacrifices she's had to make for this relationship, I think this book is her chance to be able to say her truth and say it in the way that she feels comfortable and she feels like will make sense to everybody, you know. But it just won't make sense to the people who have been there from the start of her career. Because also, when you think about Jada Pinkett Smith, the average person doesn't know her from Say It Off. They don't. They know her from Girls Trip, or they know her from Gotham, or they know her from Nutty Professor, or they know her as Will Smith's wife. They don't know her from some of the deep cuts films that people in the Black community revere her for. So I think it's important to understand that I don't think we're the audience for them when it comes to all of this information that they're giving out. And I think that's why sometimes we're looking at it with a side eye, because when I look outside of Black Twitter, people aren't talking about this. So I just think that it's important to take that into consideration when it comes to some of the motivations. And I think after that slap, a lot of the stuff that is happening now is a little bit of damage control. It doesn't really make sense to us, but I think it kind of is a thing of they're trying to humanize themselves, because Will Smith has been on a pedestal for the majority of his career. He has never, when you look at the grand scheme of things, he hasn't really stepped a foot wrong. He's one of the few celebrities that has very rarely ever stepped a foot wrong. And in the one moment that he did it spectacularly. And so it's kind of now he has to bring himself down in this humble way in order to then repair his image for the people who are looking at him like, oh, we thought you were a stand-up guy. Whereas we understand the complexities of this, but the general public don't. So I just think when you're looking at all of this stuff, you have to really think about it, the bigger picture. But obviously, it's a tricky situation. It doesn't really make sense. It's bizarre. We're not used to it. Especially in the Black community, we're not used to this. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't know if I feel bad for them, because it feels like they're fine with it. So I'm like, who am I to feel bad for them if they're fine with it? Yes, Coach, I'm done. Sorry. He's like, girl, shut up.
I wasn't saying shut up, don't worry. Does anyone else want to jump in? Just to what Precious was saying? Surprising now, these Jay and Charlie got nothing to say. Whoa.
I think we've hit all points. I think we've generally hit all points when it comes to the dynamic of, you know, who Will and Jada are and who they're trying to reach. And that's why I think it's a complete mess. I mean, it's, in fact, what I'll say is, though, as much as she's had white people on there, her crowd is still Black people. And with us, we just have a different vim for our own. You know, that's just how it is. I mean, I don't really see, and those in America, because it doesn't really happen. Forget about the media. Let's talk about people talking normally. Maybe in America, correct me if I'm wrong, do the white people, do they talk about white marriages in this particular way? Because obviously I wouldn't know. But in the UK, they might mention a scandal, they might mention something, but the energy is different. You know, when it comes to us as black people, we will dive in, we will talk about it, but it's because of the idea that we want black love. We want this to work. We want this beautiful thing. Black people who, let's say back then she was a superstar actor, one of the prettiest women, you know, every man wanted that ideal, and them getting together was wonderful, and most people didn't know their stories. It's only the internet and more things are happening. You're now reading books that now we're knowing the story. So it's just, you know, it's just a difference of culture to me when it comes to caring. And they both know it. They both actually know. But what I will say is I don't think Will Smith wants to look, what can I say? He doesn't want to look in a negative way to his own people, because at the end of the day, we still love him. You know, everyone still loves him. But it's true, the people who really pay him is not just us. He is Hollywood famous, not just black famous. And that's a different level. So, yeah, he has a different level of respect and fame to uphold compared to, I don't know if to compare it to, but compared to another person. So, it's just, the dynamic is wild.
And that's why when Will Smith says he don't care about what you guys think, he's serious, because you have to understand, this is Will Smith. This is not just, I love him, but like John David Washington or something, right? This is Will Smith. He is known around the world, and that slap was the slap that was seen around the world. When he's trying to repair his image, he's not thinking about us as a first point of call. He's really not. And I think when you look at his actions through that lens, it starts to make a bit more sense. But you know, yeah, I get why people are like looking at his service, because yeah, for a long time people did see them as couple goals, and that's not to say white people don't have couple goals. They 100% do, but I do think that they have a bit more grace when things when things go wrong with their couple goals. That people do.
They do not.
They do.
I know. We love to say that. They do not. If
do.
you see for instance, the quarterback, what's his name? The one that played football, what's his name? That went back into playing football. I forgot his name. White guy.
The one Super Bowl 4 times.
Yeah. Tom Brady. If you go on Twitter and you see the dissectional conversation about how they slaughtered that girl, you can never say that we don't have equal ways of dealing with it. We like to make this whole thing that white people are so more graceful. No, they're graceful. They look graceful when they're defending themselves against us. They are not graceful to each other. They're graceful only when they know that we're watching. Then they can be graceful, because that racist aspect, white supremacy, is still there. You know what I mean? The same way that black men deal with black women, we do the exact same thing. We will slaughter our own. But if our own now has to come against you, we will give them grace. Yeah, he's cheated on you 5 times, but you mean, why did you stay? You know, right, because we want to face you.
I get what you're saying. I would just to rebuttal, I would just say in that specific instance, I don't know if that example works completely, because in that specific instance, people who really coming after were football fans. Really and truly, most people were on Giselle's side, simply because of the way he went about that divorce was a whole thing. The whole thing of, she wanted you to retire from day. You said no. And now you went back, divorced, and then decided to retire. There's a whole thing there. A lot of the people who were coming after her were probably football fans, because it's Tom Brady, and they don't really
white males. They didn't have to even play football. They're white males.
Victoria Beckham and David Beckham, when it was men versus women, men were saying Victoria Beckham needed David Beckham, and women were saying actually Victoria helped him put him on a certain pedestal. It's all perception, especially when you are identifying yourself in the situation. But when I say that they give them grace, I mean more in a situation when it's complex situations like this, for example. Like when you look at when Joe Jonas and his wife got divorced, in the first instance, there was a lot of support for both sides. It was like, oh my God, why did they break up? So sad. Like, It was never like, but it was only when the narrative started to change on one side, that's when people start to react. And that's very similar to what we do as well. And I'm not saying that they're like, I guess when I say they give more grace, I don't mean as a whole thing, but I just think in general, they're not as attached to this idea of like love within spear, because they don't have to be. Kind of what Jay was saying is that we want that black cloth so much. So when those things go wrong, we're a lot more invested. Do you get what I'm saying? They're not as invested in seeing that because it's everywhere for them. So that's what I mean by they give it more grace, is that they've got so many other options. So they're like, oh, okay, well, I mean, celebrities married. A lot of times that you see people go, oh, celebrity marriages don't last anyway, whatever, move on. Whereas that's not always the case for us, you know?
I think we need to kill that narrative personally. I think we need to kill it. I think it's a part of white supremacy that they get us to think that we are highly more critical than they are. If you remember if you see the tabloids, how they deal with footballers that do cheating, they are on the front cover for the next 2-3 weeks. They are going to slew them and drag them. It's an absolute myth that white people don't do what we do. It is their white supremacy telling us that we are much worse than them and we complain more, we do more. We do not. They do exact same thing. The only angle is that, yes, we might have a black love angle. We might want to see more black love. And so, yes, we might be invested in that particular way. But I'm telling you now, when Rooney cheated on Colleen, they dragged his ass like he wasn't a footballer. They dragged him through the mud.
I'm not saying
that. Oh, they dragged him.
Yeah, I'm not saying
and so,
that.
But that's my point.
Yeah,
but that's my point, though. It's like it's
aspects of it than anything.
I know, but I'm saying what I'm saying to you is overall, when we say that, you know, we do it more, and I'm like, nah, they drag people. They do. When Beckham had Rebecca Luz, they dragged it until they could drag it no more. Luz was even by the time Luz finished, it was no longer loose ends. They had tied it up. You understand what I'm saying to you? Like, they drag stuff along the same way we do it, right? When Ryan Giggs cheated, right, and cheated on his brother, they're still dragging it to this day. When they mention, you can't even mention Ryan Giggs' name properly without him saying, "Oh, the love rap." The one that cheated on his brother and cheat on cheat with his wife. They don't let stuff go the same way we don't let go, right? And the only so but I get what you're saying, right? Like, Will was a global superstar, so there's a double effect. He's not just a superstar; he's a global superstar to both white and black people. But he wasn't talking to white people either. If we're really going to be frank about it, Will Smith wasn't repairing his relationship with white people, nor was he repairing it with black people. If you want to go all the way there, we need to go, without saying who they are, because we don't need to be shut down here. He wasn't doing it for us. And he wasn't doing it for white folk either. Because they're not the one that make the money.
I want to know. Who was he doing it for? Oh, okay.
Huh?
I just okay, cool.
Yeah. That's who he was doing it for. It's not for white folk or black folk. If we want to go real deep about where you're repairing your relationship at, the movers and the shakers are not the blacks or the whites. They're not the movers or the shakers. So that person he was repairing for, if you're talking about he wasn't doing it for the black, you're absolutely right. He wasn't doing it for black. He wasn't doing it for the whites either. They can say what they want. They don't want to control nothing. You know what I mean? Someone said control each other. Don't lose it, Jeffrey. You know what I mean? So, but I'm saying on both sides, white people talk about relationships so much. They talk about it a lot. We just need to spend a bit more time in their spaces. I've like consciously started watching more content with white folk in, so I can get more of the algorithm, right? And let me tell you something. Oh, they know how to drag women. Oh, listen, the misogyny. If you want to hear real misogyny, you've not heard it with Kevin Samuels before. These people, hey, they know how to drag y'all through the mud.
Look,
they know how to squash you.
I'm not saying they're not misogynist. That's not what I'm saying.
I'm not saying that either.
Saying every race of people has their own hit club. when they want to drag you down, they have their methods of doing so. That's not what I'm saying. So, but it's a thing for everyone. It's definitely a thing for everyone. So I get it, but yeah, I think it's just more thinking about when you're looking at their actions and what they've been doing. It's just, I guess for me, I'm just seeing it's just not good for us. This whole thing is just not good for us. So when we're asking specific questions, I think we should just see it through the lens, you know?
Fair point. I don't know what I'll do that.
Like, it's everyone is messy. Everybody be messy. So.
Someone says cheating with grandma. Jonathan's terrible. Saying Rooney was cheating with grandma. Yeah, I mean, they weren't the best lookers. I can't lie to you. That was what even probably hurt Colleen more than most. When they were showing the pictures of these girls, you're like, come on, Rooney, come on. If you're at least going to cheat with a baddie. You know what I'm saying? Oh.
Like we're acting like really look like David Beckham. And even
No, but he has money. There is no excuse.
Please,
There's actually no excuse.
But let's be real.
There's actually no excuse.
Let's be real. Look at who David Beckham cheated with. Yeah,
she wasn't a banging. That's when he got caught with. That's what we know he got caught with. Please.
Because David Beckham is probably hands down the most handsome.
He's a very handsome guy. I can't lie to you.
Maybe even possibly the most handsome athlete that has ever lived. Because let's be real. No, but let's be real. Premier League footballers are not the best looking. They're really not. It's like a
not you coming at them. I can't.
A lot of the British Premier League footballers are just not it, right? So you have to remember that David Beckham was living the life. When you consider he had model looks and he was actually like one of the best. It wasn't like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's actually a really good looking dude.
He was pretty. He was like number one. I'm surprised it's one. Let's just give him a round of applause that it was just one. Because it could have been worse. It really could have been
He loved
worse.
Victoria too much. Shout out to David. He loved Victoria too much to allow any loose ends. All right, cool. Let's shift it. Let's shift it. Because the actual conversation. Our actual conversation tonight, which is around the topic of I'd rather be with someone than die alone. We're in that season of life right now, so there's a real conversation and battle going on. So let me just put this video up here. Sorry guys, let me put this video up here. Why can't I find it? Here we go. Sorry, apologies. I'm gonna play his first video. I'm gonna play two videos. I found this video was quite funny, so I thought I'll play it for you guys.
Batteries from my passion contraption. There's only 4 things on my mind. Wines and liquor. Liquor and wines. Libido out of whack. Hormones are waging an attack. I need someone to blow out my bowel. Knife danger battery.
Shout out to Biseo. She be killing it as always, simply. But I've got a second video I want to play for you guys as well, which I think will be quite interesting to start the conversation with.
Who is my?
Here we go, from Nina Leaks. And you'll see how that tie in. I know I didn't play that video for Vance. It actually has a tie in that video, so I will talk about why it ties in.
Emergency contact, or who is it that I will want somebody to call in case something happens? And in any other case, I would have them to reach out to my husband. And so I had to start thinking about who my emergency contact would be. And my emergency contact, I put my son down as my emergency contact. In the past, I have listed my husband as my emergency contact. So I started thinking and saying, maybe I should just marry. Who is my emergency contact, or who is, whether I'm 100% happy with the person or not. Maybe I should marry just so that I have a partner, a partner for life, right? And I was thinking about having a partner for life. Even though I know the person isn't right for me, I'm just thinking having a partner for life, at least there's someone, maybe we would have an agreement that this person would be there for me and I would be there for them during hard times or medical times or something like that. And so she and I was throwing this conversation back and forth.
Listen, it's hard out here. It's hard out here. It's hard out here. I'm not gonna lie to you. I thought she was joking. I can't lie to you. I mean, I felt like she was acting, and the tears didn't even feel real to me. But it doesn't really matter whether it's real or not. You know, it is a conversation we're gonna have, which is I'd rather be with somebody than to die alone. You understand what I'm saying to you? Like, and the question I'm asking you guys is it better just to be with somebody than to die alone? You know what I'm saying? You know, because you know, there's a lot of people out here who are suffering, don't have that community, don't have that person, don't have that warm body at night. You know what I'm saying? You know, some people are 7 years separated. So like you really, it's not easy out here. You know, it's not easy out here. So wanted to have a real conversation about this, you know, and see what you guys are saying, you know. There's nothing like a warm body next to you. The Bible even says it's better that two lie together because it can keep some heat. It's biblical. Yes, Charlene.
You know, I really feel for Nini. I think she's been married like half of her life at this point, and you don't just be. It's really tough to lose your husband. And what I'm hearing from her is just, you know, panic-stricken grief. That's what I'm hearing. And when you are in that state of mind, you're not thinking clearly. It's never a good idea to just be with somebody and have an arrangement, you know, because that warm body is not going to be warm again. You know, if you go into it not, if you go into it and he's not your person, or it's not like that, we just have an arrangement, is that body really going to be warm next to you in the bed? They going to be next to you in the bed? Are they going to have separate rooms? I don't know. I just think that she's not thinking clearly. And I was also thinking to myself that this video is going to bite her in the butt if she ever does meet somebody that she really does like. People are going to be quick to point out what she said and say, well, is he the guy that you're not really into, but you're with because of company's sake? But yeah, I just think this is just the nature of grief. She's always, for most of her life, half of her life, she's had someone that had her back. And now she doesn't, and it hits different, man. I feel for her.
Who would like to go next? Go for it, Jay. You ready? You ready?
Yeah, so a few things for me. I'm going to start off here because this might be the bad one, but this is not the point I'm trying to make. It's just something that I think I want to throw out there. I can never understand someone putting on a crying face and, you know, putting on the crying voice, but there's no tears. I personally don't quite understand that. So I can understand why Kojo or someone else can feel that's fake, because you've seen numerous videos where the same things happen. So I personally can't understand that. Although I do have two daughters, and when they were young, you know, they did similar things, right? So I personally can't understand that. It's okay, like what's going on? That's the question I would ask, what's going on? But to address the circumstance, what actually upsets me is I don't want the red pill community to take this video and use it for their rhetoric. When I say red pill, I mean the extreme red pill community. I don't even want to put their names out on this channel, forget them, but you know who I'm talking about. That's what upsets me, because this is a circumstance where she was married and lost her husband. This isn't their rhetoric, but I know they're going to, unfortunately, because of who Nini is. And well, this is posted in a shade room, right? So they're probably going to make a video about this and use this to drum down women, exactly the stuff that they try to do. So for me, all I want to do is address the circumstance. I've never personally felt like being on my own. I'm lonely. I need a companion. But I 100% understand people who do. I also understand it from a woman's point of view. Forget about all of this. I can die alone. I don't need no one. No, I want my man. You know, I don't want to put my mom as the next of kin. I don't want to put my children. I want my man. I want that companionship. So it's a real conversation that a lot of people do ask themselves. We have a lot of older people who are ending up with childhood sweethearts, who are, you know, they might be in a nursing home and end up getting with someone. That, you know, that emotion can actually make them feel young again, can actually give them energy. It's just something about companionship that does something. When we go to the gym, we can end up doing more because we're with our peoples, isn't it? We're with our gym bros or our gym sisters. So there's something there that's inherent about companionship and being able to be happy, survive, have fun. But I feel for Nene Leakes or any other person in this situation because she had to look after her sick husband, right? In her mind is, if I'm sick, who's going to look after me? My mother's of a certain age. I don't even know if she got kids or not. I don't know about any of that stuff, but it's a real conversation where in the moment you're gonna have like a panic attack. You're gonna have that thought because you just watched someone die. Death is a real thing to you. And I don't know how old she is. I don't think she's even 50 yet, but this is a real conversation. And for her to even say that, it obviously means there's plenty of men who are directly telling her, don't worry, I got you. But because either she's still healing or she doesn't feel whatever she needs to feel for them, she's saying no. But now she's starting to think, maybe I'm of a certain age. Maybe, you know, I really want someone around. I don't want to be just alone. Maybe I need to consider these men transactionally. Maybe I need to consider these men in terms of safety. I've already done the love thing. Doesn't make sense for me to now get married to someone else and say you're the love of my life. But my husband was the love of my life. So what does that mean if I say this new person's the love of my life? So there's a lot of questions. So I get it. I mean, a lot of traditional pastors will say, yeah, go ahead. Don't worry about love. It will come later. You don't need it. Okay, fine. So I get the understanding. So I'm not gonna villainize her because of it. That's too strong of a word. I'm not gonna say anything negative towards her because of it. I actually get it. But where I stand is, I mean, I don't want anyone to be in a marriage where those feelings aren't there. Where I think as Charlene said, like when you're in bed at night, you want to know that person really, you know, is for you, not there to fill a hole or to fill a need, but is really there for you. And yeah, I know we're in two different walks of life, but yeah, that to me is a difficult thing, you know. So I can't really fault her for being upset in the moment.
Pantanica. But yeah, no, listen, it's real. I want to say, you know, I actually do understand where Nini's coming from. You know, um, even as a Christian, maybe because of my attachment style, you know, I tend to roll alone. I do a lot of things alone. I don't really mind doing them alone. But when it runs up on you, it is gangster. Can't lie to you. When that loneliness runs up on you, it runs with the LONIELEL. It runs up on you with a couple characters. You understand what I'm saying to you? Yeah. And the characters are long. You feel me? Pause. So it's like, you know, the I do understand where she's coming from. I get it, man. Do you know what I mean? And of course, I'm still. I guess I'm somewhat still young. You know, the dating field is still open and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is that I can see how quickly it gonna run up on you. You know what I mean? And especially if you have not got great links around you. You know, if you haven't got great, strong friendships around you, it can be very difficult. And even then, that don't mean nothing. You know what I mean? Like even having great friends, that don't change the fact that those friends are not romantically loving you. Like that is a human want and a human need to have someone who just desires you and loves you and cares for you. So you can have as much kitty cats around you and as much dogs around you, but it don't make a difference because at the end of the day, you're gonna want some interaction that's gonna make you feel desired and loved and cared for. And that is the pandemic and epidemic we're facing right now, which is that you know we are struggling as a generation in this time from being so isolated, and we're isolated because we've actually done it to ourselves. And when I say us, I mean technology. You know, we're having a conversation right now that usually maybe 20, 30 years ago, we'd have sitting around each other's house and have this conversation. We would sit around, and in fact, when television even first came, people would go to people's houses and sit and watch television together. Now you watch television in your own house. Now the kids even watch television in their own room. You understand what I'm saying to you? And I remember some years ago, and I said that what's happening is kind of devilish because it's about removing the companionship. And I said video games are the worst thing right now because when they first started, remember N64, remember the Sega Mega Drive, we remember the Dreamcast, we remember the those game consoles, PlayStation. When they first started, how many controllers could you have for the game? 4. Some could even do 8. Now, game consoles come, you'd be lucky to get a second controller, and then every game is now no longer multiplayer, it's single mode and go online. And I said, like, the shift that they're moving towards isn't to help people, it's to isolate people. So now people are struggling to have social interactions because not because they can't even socialize, but because we're not used to socializing. We're used to having our own space, not sharing it with nobody, doing whatever we want to do on our particular side of things, and then having conversations that way. So we have to get back to basics, which is, and it's so crazy we're talking about this because I was talking about this. I was talking about it yesterday. I was talking to a friend about it yesterday that I want to start building, especially a community. I know we have one in like the UK, US panel, but I want to build like a community for the UK people. You guys have met a few times, but I want to expand it so other people can come and meet too, because that interaction can save somebody's life literally. And maybe something might come out of it, somebody who knows, but just having that community around you is so vital. But I won't lie to you, it don't matter how many friends you want. You want some Delash, you want some Passoir. It's just what it is. Eventually it does come down to that. You want to look a little bit of it. Okay? You want your person. I rest my case. Yes, Precious.
I was going to say, I think it's more about wanting your person.
Does it not come with Delash and does it not come with Passoir?
But you can get that, as you said, you can get that without having your person. So that's why I think it's more about
Only for so long.
Sorry?
Only for so long.
Yeah, well, I mean, according to some of your lives, it can go on for a while. So people have to but no, it's wanting to be a priority in somebody's life. It's feeling that you are an important, like, number one important person in somebody's life. It's that feeling, because yes, you can have really good friends and who are supportive, family who's supportive, all that stuff, but when family and friends have to deal with their own stuff, having that person who's concerned about your stuff in a way that is a bit more proactive, a bit more engaging, a bit more prioritizing, it's a different feeling. And I think a lot of people suffer from not having that, really not having that companionship that makes them feel seen and heard and not as lonely. And I know that even in the group chat, we were talking about the idea of touch starvation and how many people are starved of touch and how many people actually suffer from it. It's a condition and it's a thing, and it's definitely very common. And I think a lot of people are suffering with a lot of loneliness. And I feel her loneliness was something that was completely out of her control. It's such a devastating thing to have to experience, of losing a spouse. I can't even imagine. I know that's not something I don't know if that's something I could survive. It's such a hard thing to go through. And that element, that added seasoning to that loneliness is really going to kick you. And she's very strong for even being able to deal with, to try and get through it. I agree with Charlene that maybe putting it on social media wasn't the best idea, because it can, unfortunately, people do use these things against you. But also, I guess on the other side, this video probably helped someone feel seen and feel heard and feel like they're not the only one that's feeling that way, and that they're not crazy for feeling that way, and then they're not, desperate for feeling that way. It's a very normal thing to feel, even without the added stuff that she's gone through. I think a lot of people put themselves in situations that are less than ideal because they're running away from that loneliness and they're running away from all of that. And I think that, it's very difficult. And I know people are saying in the chat, you can feel lonely in a marriage and you can feel lonely in a relationship, but the loneliness that you feel in a marriage relationship is very, very different to the kind of loneliness that you feel when you haven't got anyone there. It's a very, very different type of loneliness. And if you already have issues with like self-esteem and self-worth and things like that, it takes on a whole new life. So I wouldn't even say that I wouldn't compare the two, because I think they're very different circumstances. They're very different types of loneliness. And of course, nobody wants to feel lonely in a relationship. But then that's just using a straw man argument. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody feeling lonely, and potentially putting themselves in a situation that they shouldn't be in because of that. And that's dangerous. So yeah, I think my heart goes out to her. My heart goes out to people who feel that loneliness. I think I'm going to assume that everyone on this panel has probably at some point felt that. I may be wrong. Not Jay. Jay's never felt that. He is living the life that we all want to live. I feel that. But yeah, it's, when you have felt it, it's incredibly hard. And yeah, I think there's just some grace there for that. Because it's something that can really, it can mess you up. And I do feel like I don't know if it's more of a, I don't think it is more of a gender thing. I think it's something that regardless of gender, people feel. I just think I think sometimes women can be a bit more vocal about it. But yeah, it's a real thing that's happening for people, unfortunately. And social media and the internet and the individualism of society that we've now brought into because of trust issues and glorifying trust issues, glorifying commitment phobia, has created this culture where people are now lonely and they don't feel comfortable saying it because they're going to get clowned, or they feel like they will be told that they need to focus on themselves, or that they need to be happy by themselves before they get into a relationship. And it's like, I know it's all well-meaning, but all of that advice is really just pop psychology that people have regurgitated, and they don't actually know what that means and how that affects somebody. If you were going to go to therapy and you said, I feel lonely, your therapist isn't going to go, you need to focus on yourself. You need to understand what is the root of the loneliness, what's causing it, what's making it difficult for you to be able to reach out to people and connect to people. There's a whole process going on there. So I just think that sometimes people can be quite dismissive when people say that they're lonely, and it's important to not be too dismissive about that, and not to feel like you can just sort of fling blue tack advice at the wall and hope something sticks. So yeah, that's me off my soapbox. Hope everyone doesn't feel lonely and feels loved. And Kojo apparently is now becoming a professional hugger. So it's £15 an hour. Save up. It'd be good.
Thank you, manager. Thank you, manager.
Sometimes
I got to practice my hugs on you to make sure it's still sharp. You know what I mean? Sean, go for it. Tell us your thoughts.
I was gonna be silly and speak in a
I know
British
you were.
accent because
I was waiting for you.
someone told me that I needed to speak with a bit of a British twang to be on this good panel with you, my UK family.
please
But
try.
I said, after Charlene speaks, maybe the next time after she speaks, I'll be able to pick it up, and then I could, I can give it a good go at it. But right now, I'm just going to butcher it and wind up probably sounding like Austin Powers. So I won't do that to you guys. But hello, good people.
There you go.
So, yeah, no, this topic, I happened to see this clip from her channel recently, and it really resonated with me because, I know, Coach, you know that, recently with, my brush with cancer, this became all too real. And, these were things I just didn't have to think about. And I even kind of waited a little while after I got divorced to move around my emergency contacts. But it's a real thing because in most of my adult life, my mom was my emergency contact. But I was so excited once I got married to be able to change that over to my wife's, and to have to wind up switching it out. And then now when I'm, going to doctor's appointments and, things that you would have someone at home to do with you. Right now, I'm calling on friends and loved ones to do that. And I mean, I'm thankful for my mom, because she was, you know, she really stepped in. But you know, at this big grown age, you know, I would have loved for it to be, you know, my wife. And it really does become a harsh reality. And as I kind of navigated my journey over the last 5 months, it's kind of been like, damn, there's some nights where I'm by myself, and I've had a good network, thank God, whether it's, you know, our LBB family, my other close friends, my other family members. People have definitely stepped in and really, you know, wrapped their arms around me. But at the end of the night, I'm by myself, right? And sometimes you just want to, especially dealing with a debilitating, potentially life-threatening illness. Look, there were nights that I wish I could have fell into the arms of my wife's bosom, you know, and just laid on her warm breast. You know, I'm being a little silly, but it's true. You know, it's true that you just need those moments. And I mean, this is dealing with the terminal illness. It's just as human beings, Kojo, and you mentioned this earlier, there's just that need for intimacy in that sense. And not just even sexually. They, you know, I think there's a study, and Precious, you touched on it, right? Like, people need to be hugged. It is something that is so important. People need that human touch. They need to be able to talk to somebody. And Coach, I know you don't like dogs, but I mean, I thank God for my dog, you know, because I done talked to her a many a night, and you know, she's looked at me and, you know, just been a support in a different way. And an animal can't replace a human, definitely not. But those are the things that sometimes we leverage, and I think it's super important. And sometimes when you don't have, especially if you had it, it's almost worse than if you had it and then you don't have it anymore. It's like it just tears away at you. So I can definitely, you know, empathize and agree and relate.
Bro, hearing you 100%, bro. It's such a real thing. You know, and you know, and I think I remember I did a video some months back, about no, some years back, that, you know, I don't need sex, I just need a hug. And I didn't realize how deep how that's rooted in. So before I even knew about touch starvation, whatever, that's what I felt. I felt like, you know what, sometimes you just need that good. And again, I'm gonna say it straight. Much as I need the friendship hug, sorry, I need someone that likes me kind of hug. Okay, that's the kind of hug I need sometimes. Okay, that hug that is a friendship hug, I appreciate it. It's very nice. Okay, I need a hug that hugs you, that says, you know what, you're my everything. You know what I mean, and etc. etc. Vice versa, vice versa. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's just nice to have, like you said, Sean, that person. And I'll say something, probably gonna out myself, but it's what it is, right? There is times where I'm in the bed, I'm just like, I just want a warm body. Maybe not a warm body, but someone I actually care about, that I can just lay next to and just be. I don't need to do anything, just be there. And so, though, that lets you know just how important companionship on that level is like, it's huge. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, but my friend can't do that. You know what I'm saying to you? Like, you know, that part of business cannot be done that way. You understand? Yeah. So it's those little intricacies of being a human, that can be very tough on that particular aspect as well. So yeah, I know these guys are saying some stupid stuff about what you lot saying in the chat. But anyway, yeah, Jay, go for it. What's your thoughts, Jay?
And this is why I understand, you know, like, for like, my loneliness as I felt lonely when I was married. I felt lonely in probably one other relationship, but I've never experienced like what you guys are talking about as just a single person. So I can't talk from that experience, but I can understand it. That's why I don't judge it, because I really do get it, and we all come from similar but also different backgrounds as well, not in terms of culture, but in terms of what we've been through and what that's done to us. And I feel like for me, that's more so come from a place of protection. of getting to a place where I don't need it, so I'm okay. Because if I need it, I'm you know how it can go sometimes. So, but yeah, either way, I fully get it, and especially when you're used to something as well, and it's no longer there. I think I was watching the lead attorney, I think a couple of days ago, and he was saying when he got divorced, for example, that's when he noticed there were certain, regardless of how he felt about his wife or ex-wife, there were certain things that he realized that he misses, and it was small things like because he's got muscles, he couldn't really do his collar, so he's thinking, wow, I've actually just leaned over to the bed for her to do it, and she's not there. So I fully understand that, and you know, with Nene Leakes, especially with the type of husband that she had, she grew up with a guy who really fulfilled her, who really did certain things. And although she's healed from it for the past 2 years, although she would have spent a lot longer helping him out, you know, I don't know how long he had the cancer diagnosis for, and he was deteriorating. But she's at a point where she's like, okay, I've healed to a certain point. I've probably gone in a few days, and it really is dawning on me. Am I really gonna feel what I feel like I need to feel to get in order to get married again? Probably not. And if that's the case, does that mean I'm going to be lonely? I don't want to be lonely, you know. So I understand it. I 100% understand it. I don't, you know, it's tough. And to me, it's one of those things that when you're in those shoes, feeling those emotions, like you said, Coach, that's when it really dawns on you. Same thing, Sean. That's when it really does dawn on you. But I'm going to say this again to caveat, please. The Red Pill Society, do not jump all over this and use this to really push your rhetoric, because this is a really deep thing that we're discussing, like a really deep thing that you know is something that a lot of people have to think about.
Can I also say
Charlie,
something?
go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
So, you know, this whole thing about loneliness, I think people make the assumption that other people are not lonely like they are. And I think that there is this projection that other people are all okay, but loneliness is universal. You know, we all go through it. And what you were talking about, Kojo, about everybody's online and we would have been at, you know, somebody's house having this discussion, and now we're all in our separate homes. You know, I think we are lonelier now more than ever. I mean, I've heard that a few times. And we are all experiencing it. But it's rare that people really say, I feel lonely, you know? I'm wondering if that is, I don't know, is there a stigma attached to that, or what is that? People don't want to be too vulnerable. I'm curious about that.
I think it's definitely about people being vulnerable, because it's a hard thing to admit that you're lonely, because I guess a lot of people have this kind of like what you said, people assume that other people aren't lonely. So if they're the ones coming in and saying, I'm lonely, they don't want to feel like the odd one out. And I think because we've had so many years of people going, oh, you're lonely because you don't value yourself enough, or because you haven't learned to love yourself enough. And that is just such, why my language, bullshit. It's so like, it's so, what's the word? Disrespectful in a way. Like, it's just so dismissive. And people have run with this rhetoric that if somehow if you feel lonely, or you don't feel fulfilled because you don't feel all the way fulfilled because you don't have a partner, somehow you don't love yourself enough, you don't value yourself enough. And that's not the truth. We are human beings. We're all created to want a companion and to want that physical touch and that emotional connection and that friendship and all of those things that come with the whole being on this planet with other people. And so the idea that people try to discredit that it angers me a lot. And we need people. We're a society. Society is based on having those interconnected connections with people. And if we don't have that, you feel very on the fringe, and it creates a lot of space for pain and sadness and, you know, low mental health and mental well-being. And I think, at least for me anyway, I know social media is not a representation of the world, but I have definitely noticed that people have kind of taken on this rhetoric of being an independent person, being an individual, striving it for yourself and not relying on people, being able to rely on yourself. And yes, to a certain point, you should be able to believe in yourself and have their self-worth and think highly of yourself, because there are some quote unquote narcissistic traits that you actually need to survive in society. It's just about where on the spectrum that is. But the idea that we are so individualistic that we don't see the need of having those relationships and putting those relationships not necessarily on the pedestal, but putting them and making them a priority in the sphere of our lives is very short-sighted. And that's why so many people feel it, but they don't say anything. And of course, there's the idea of chronic loneliness and depression and things like that, but just general loneliness is a thing. And I think when we're thinking about things like touch starvation and not having that non-sexual physical intimacy, when you're an adult, for example, and you live by yourself, your likelihood of having that touch quota met is so much lower than if you were living with a partner or living with your family. And granted, you can live with your family and live with your partner and still have that issue. So, but, I think when you think about how people kind of, they see themselves as being the only lonely one because everybody shows that everyone either shows that they don't need people or that they have people. And so it just adds to this myth that no one else but you feels lonely, and that's not the truth. It's sad when you think about it.
I just wanted to add, because I see in some of the comments, like, we've talked about this before, when people just over spiritualize everything. Well, you'll never be lonely with Jesus Christ. No, I'm sorry. You will be. Jesus Christ was also lonely himself, and he was not even full mortal like we are. Okay. We are flesh. God designed us to be in companionship with one another. And admitting that you are lonely or feel loneliness does not make you weak. It doesn't mean that you are any less. It is understanding and recognizing that we as human beings are mere babies. If they're not touched when they're born, will not survive. Okay? That skin to skin contact is needed. So we cannot deny every part of ourselves and over spiritualize ourselves. We are not all spirit. We are also flesh. And those are not bad things. Those are good things, because we're designed to be in healthy relationship with one another. Okay. So I just want us to not live in this space where, yes, we should die to our flesh 100%. But that doesn't mean wanting the hug or touch of someone else makes you wrong, or makes you less a Christian, or makes you less of a believer, or distances your relationship with God. It does not, because he created us that way. Now, it shouldn't be manipulated or distorted. And when we start going down other paths, yes, that's our flesh. But the mere notion of wanting a hug, wanting to be touched, needing other people physically to survive is important. And I think sometimes when we just we'll never be alone with Jesus Christ. He's going to fill every void. No, no, he won't. We will not perish, perhaps, but we need each other. Hezekiah Walker has a beautiful song that I need you to survive, right? We need each other. And it's just so important. And I just think I don't want us to dismiss that. I want us to lean into that sometimes. I want us to understand that and acknowledge it, because what happens is, I think too often when we over spiritualize it, or we start dismissing it like God feels everything. And then when we are alone and we have that feeling, we're desperate and we're hopeless And then sometimes that causes us to go in a far further direction, or we get so far into ourselves that we don't know how to relate to other people anymore. Because when someone comes to us and says, hey, listen, I'm fighting with this, or I'm dealing with that, we've gotten so far into a space that we can't even relate to people. You know, and we have to also balance it and not just come up with these churchisms and spiritualisms and Jesus is going to fill every void. You know, we got to do better than that, you know, and we also need to be honest with ourselves and know your body, because sometimes we get with people like you get, like I've been in relationships with one or two super churchy people, and it's like, are you for real? Like, do you have anything else to talk to me about? Like, where is the human part of you? Like, let's talk, let's have real conversations, but you're just so far into it. And if it's not you, that's fine. But I'm saying these experiences happen and people get so churchy that they get lost and they forget that you too are human. You too are faulty. You too have needs and desires. And when you go to bed at night alone, and things get to tingling and you don't have nobody to do nothing with it, that's a real feeling. And it's okay. Doesn't mean you settle for whatever walks through the door next, but it's a real feeling and we have to acknowledge it and talk about it.
I need thee, oh, yes, I need thee. Listen,
Every hour, keep going, bro.
every hour, sir, every hour. Listen, I mean, look, I think, you know, what you're saying is really important for us, especially as a Christians as well. Like, you know, that it does get lonely. No matter how much I pray, no matter how much I spend time in the spiritual realms, if I am on this earth, I am going to feel some type of way. You know what I mean? And that's natural. We don't have to take that away. It's natural to feel that way. Um, you know, there's times where people want a relationship, times where people want somebody, there's times where people just want intimacy. So it's normal. These are all natural urges and natural feelings. You know, we're not trying to suppress them at all. We're merely saying, you know, at a time, you know, that you know, it can be very hard in those moments. You know, even like how we meet, Sean. We met what, in Houston a couple months back in July. We're now meeting again, Jamaica, end of this month. And you don't realize how important those meetups become. Like when we left, I even said to you and Jay, I said, when you guys left me in Houston to go back to your various places, I felt this overwhelming sadness. And then because we spent like a couple of days together, and you know what I mean, and then it's like it's all over. You know what I mean? It's done, and everyone's going to their respective homes again. Do you know what I mean? So I remember after they left, I actually documented it. I actually did a video on it, and I spoke out my true feelings. I felt sad, and I felt sad because I was like, yo, like even though I know that I'm gonna see him again, in fact, I was gonna see him, you know, probably again, maybe the end of the year, if by the grace of God or whatever. Still, you know, you can't beat the face to face. You know what I'm saying? You can't beat being in each other's presence. You can't beat you know, like even how we're talking now, right? We're making little jokes in the background in private chat. But when you're in person, you actually make jokes on the spot. Like you have little ad libs, whatever. Obviously, we don't do that here because we want to keep the kind of respectability of the conversation. But when you're in person, you can do that because it doesn't necessarily derail the conversation. So it's like those little tidbits of changes where, you know, you can, I think when me and Sean were in the same hotel in DC, and he's just across the corridor from myself. You know, I can go and knock on his door, say, what's going on, bro? I hope you're good. You know what I mean? Or have a conversation, we joke about something that's happened or whatever. And you don't realize, even if it's just 5 minutes, it makes such a difference. You know, it makes such a difference to have that, you know. You know, just little things. Sean, I think when I was Sean brought me a plate of food because he was having his family get together. Brought me a plate of food. I wasn't necessarily fully hungry at that point, but even little things like that, like you don't realize those little things really help build a connection up, but also as well, it helps to stave off that loneliness that one might feel when you're spending time having fun, joking with people, just enjoying the company of friends, family, and stuff like that. Do you know what I'm saying? And so yeah, like, you know, me and JJ's in the chat now. You know, and again, this is something that's also important about interactions. Like, you go on holiday with people and you have a different type of bond. You know, when you spend time away, like we have a lot of personal jokes. Myself, Jay, Sean, Seaway, from America, we have a lot of personal jokes. Obviously, UK, we have our own now as well. But you know, like when you spend time with people, you have your own kind of language, the way you move, the way you talk. Me and Jay and Sean laugh about this moment in the car when we were in Houston. It's the funniest moment ever, and you have to be there to actually understand how funny it is. But to those people, it's the funniest thing that's ever happened. We were crying of laughter. But if I explain it to you, it doesn't make sense. So these are the things I'm saying about how having those opportunities to interact with people is huge. So yes, aside the sex part, yes, it's not all about sex. It's more about the fact that we're having these moments where we're interacting, we are spending time with each other, and we're bonding. You know what I mean? And this is, you know, you can't underestimate how powerful it is. You know? Yeah. Anyone else have some thoughts whilst I said that? Sorry. Got a bit deep there for a second. That's right. Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson.
Then I guess the
Me and
next
him is
question would
numbers.
be: Do you think people should settle?
Hey. What a question for the ladies. What's up, Precious?
You're on mute.
Oh, you're on mute, babe.
I know, I knew I was on mute, but I was on. Why is it a question for the ladies? Why is it not a question for the person he asked it to, which was you, Kojo?
He wasn't asking it to me. He was asking the ladies. I knew that because I know how Jay is. I'm playing. I'm playing. But I would love for you to answer it, Precious.
I guess it depends on what it means, but what you mean by settling. I think some people think being content is settling. So I think it depends on what you view as settling. I think no one's perfect. You're never going to find a perfect partner. So inherently, everyone is settling on some level. Anyone who tries to say, "Oh yeah, my partner is perfect," even if they're the love of your life, that's a lie. So everyone is settling on something. It just depends on what you're settling, whether those things are actually really, really important to you. If you're settling on the things that truly, truly important to you because you don't want to be lonely, then yeah, you're settling. You shouldn't do that because inevitably, it's well, not inevitably. Sometimes it does work, but most of the time, it's gonna rear its ugly head up at some point in the relationship. I think it's important that you have those important things in your life those hard and fast rules that you're like, I can't negotiate on these, because there's 7 billion people in the world. You'll find somebody who also agrees with you, who aligns with you. You're not going to not find them. I think settling has been demonized and it's been given a bad rap because everyone kind of sees it as like, oh, you couldn't find someone, so you just had to pick whoever came along. And I can't say most people, I don't have evidence for that, but I think there's a lot of people who don't do that. There's a lot of people who do that, but there's also a lot of people who don't. So I don't think you should ever sacrifice what's truly important to you because you're lonely. But I also don't think that being content with your partner, or the fact that your partner doesn't have 10 out of the 10 things, doesn't have all 10 of the things that are on your list, maybe has 8, all of a sudden, no, they're not good enough. I don't want to settle. So I think it all just goes back to what you deem settling, what's actually genuinely important to you, and how you go about that, really and truly.
That was a great PC answer, but I was more so specifying on Nini's situation. I know or I feel I'm not going to find that love, should I just be with someone just so he's there?
Well, I think one, the answer wasn't PC, it was the truth. Two, I also feel like she still hasn't gone through, she's still grieving. I think the idea that you're not going to find another love is very pessimistic. And it's usually something you say when you're still in the midst of a breakup or in grieving. You may find a love that's not the same. That doesn't mean that it's bad. That doesn't mean that it's settling. Because inherently that person is not the same person as your former spouse. So it will never be the same love. You can't expect that love to replicate what you had with that person, because that's not, they're two different people. I do think though she shouldn't just pick anybody just because she's lonely. I don't think that's what she should do. But I also feel like she clearly still is in the thick of grieving, and she does, as Kojo likes to say, need to sit on the bench for a bit longer. And that's not to say that what she's been through is not a hard thing. It is a hard thing, and that's why I think she's not ready. 2 years is not a lot of time to say that you're healed from losing a spouse. That's not, 2 years is nothing when you think about what she's had to deal with, when you have to think about the trauma of having to take care of him because he was ill and then losing him. 2 years is nothing. So I don't think she's in the place to really truly get into a relationship. And I think that's why the loneliness and the trying to find a partner is being conflated, and it's a difficult moment because she's not healed. She's not in that place yet. I think she just definitely needs to continue getting support from a professional, continue getting support from her family and friends, and to lean on people around her as much as she can, because I don't think her getting into a relationship because she's lonely is a good idea at any point in her life, especially not now.
Yeah, I would say that I don't really know what you mean by settling either. I'll say that, but what I will say, and what I do know for sure, is that if you're just gonna be like, pick a person that is gonna be there, you can actually amplify those feelings of loneliness, because you could pick somebody that you're not really connected to, and I think that there are a lot of people in lonely marriages, which is a real shame, lonely relationships, and they feel isolated within their relationship, and everyone looks at them and says, well, it's all right for you, you're married, and they're like, oh, if only you knew how lonely I am. And like I said, I'm not really sure what your definition of settling is, but I do know that picking the wrong person can amplify your feelings of loneliness.
Should I clear up? So when we use the term settling, it's whenever it's always been discussed, it's always been based off, I want more, or I feel I deserve more, but for the sake of being married, I'm just going to accept this. And which is what Nini is saying. There is more that I want when it comes to marriage in terms of the feelings I have for the person and the feeling that the person has for me. But I've come to a conclusion that I might not get that. So for the sake of not being lonely, should I just marry, even though I know that person's not really enough?
Well,
My thing is, you know that though.
What do you say?
How does she know that?
That's how she feels.
But that's why I'm saying is that she's not in the position to objectively be able to say that right now, because she's still grieving. And I think it's the idea that you're not going to find someone to love. And look, I've been there. I have been there where I've been like, I don't know if this is a thing for me. I don't know if that's possible, but a lot of the time it's coming out of you're just not in a good place. And the loneliness that you're feeling is amplifying that uncertainty of whether you will find somebody, because everybody has not everybody, but I think a lot of people tend to question, will I ever find the one? Will I ever find somebody that I love and I can be in a happy, Hollywood romantic type relationship, or a relationship that lasts the test of time? I think a lot of people ask themselves that question a lot. So it's not a new phenomenon. It's not something that's new, but I think in her situation specifically, it's been amplified by the grief that she feels. It's been amplified by the loneliness. She has no evidence to support this claim that she won't find somebody to love. And that insecurity and that fear is exactly what people like the red pill feast off on. And I don't feel comfortable encouraging that. I think that's, I acknowledge that's how she feels, and I can see why she feels that. I think she needs to give herself more time. She needs to give herself more grace and be more patient with herself, because she's experienced something that's incredibly devastating. But of course, it's easier said than done. When you're in the thick of it, and you're in the eye of the storm, you can only see about an inch ahead of you, maybe like a few yards ahead of you. You can't see the rest of the picture because you're in the thick of it. So it's, of course, I can understand that she feels that way. But I guess if she was sitting in front of me right now, I would say to her, you don't know that. You don't have evidence to prove that. Don't make a decision that you have nothing to prove that is the correct decision. Just focus on trying to lean on your loved ones, lean on the people that are around you, and try and take it day by day. But of course, it's easier said than done, so I get it. But yeah.
Yeah, listen, no, man. Look, man. Look. Look, you know what? Everyone's got a time, everyone's got to settle, no jokes. No, I mean, listen, I think a lot of people are going to have a readjustment. I think they are. I think it's just natural as a human being. What you thought you could ask for, you cannot. You're going to change your specifications and your requirement. It is a part of human life. If you get, and look, I know some people are probably going to say they're going to hold standards and hold frame for the entirety of their life. God on bless them. Good old bless them, because you let them continue. But the majority of other people should begin to adjust as time frames change, because their needs are going to shift, right? You get to 40, like people say, I need a man to have a job, I need him to have this, that. You get to 60, you might not need him to have a job, just need to have a pension and, just be a good man. That's it. You know what I'm saying to you? So time has at different times in our life, we have different specifications and different requirements, whereas and depending on what perception you're looking from of a lens, you might consider that settling, but maybe for you, your mindset has changed so much in a couple of those years that would have been settling a couple of years ago, but now it's like, no, that's just okay for me. I'm content with that. You know what I'm saying? I'm content with that. I'm okay with that. And it might happen to the elite. She might get to 60 and be like, you know what? Frick it. I just need a man that's gonna be cool. Don't worry about no bill. I got it covered. All I need for him to do is just to be able to be a respectful man and just be loving. That's it. Things may change. So I'm not saying she has to settle. What I'm saying is your perception of what is important shifts with experiences and with time. So what she wanted today may not be what she wants tomorrow. I.e., too, for what I want today may not be what I want tomorrow. Because of things that happen. So yeah, I don't know. Settling down with somebody for the sake of some companionship, I mean, I'm not against it. Shoot, if that's what you want to do, at least if you're gonna choose somebody that is good-hearted. Yeah, that's what I'm saying to you. Yeah, choose someone that's good-hearted. If that's what you're gonna do, choose someone good-hearted. And I would preferably say you choose this when you get to about 40, 45, 50. You have the maturity at that stage to do that. But when you're 20, 30, you're still hot-blooded. You go and settle down. You divorce in 10. Like, leave it alone. You know what I mean? But for those of us who have reached the maturity, the age, you're not going anywhere. Your pension's coming up. At that point, gray hair is chasing you. Like, at that point, you're not. Your requirements are different. So yeah, that's what I would say. You know, someone else might have a different point of view though, but yeah.
It does the age, does that change for men and women, or do you think it's the same?
I think it's the same. Can't lie to you. No matter how men try to make it as if, oh, my sperm's gonna work when I'm 80, it don't matter if the sperm works or not. You're gonna be tired. You're gonna be tired. You're gonna be lonely. You're gonna see that no one else around you. Sperm needs to go somewhere. You ain't got nobody. You understand what I'm saying to you? You're gonna learn like everybody else. You got the same time frame. Doesn't matter whether the thing works or not.
Most sperm at 80 doesn't work, but I understand the sentiment. It's very much so. I think I agree. I think when you get to a certain age, your priorities change. But I think there was a lot of pressure put on people to find somebody at a certain time, especially, I guess, for women because of kids, if they want kids. But, you know, I think there's a lot of pressure, and sometimes we rush because there's so much pressure, and we want to feel that complete picture of, you know, all the things working in conjunction for good. It's kind of like that show Manifest that always says all the things work together for good. It's wanting that in your life. So I think it's a situation where that's something that drives people, that companionship drives people, and that desire can drive you into a place where you don't want to be in. So it's always trying to be careful, very, very careful.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, you know, the heart, Kojo, is what you said is super important. Like you guys need to be on the same page. The person needs to be kind-hearted, and just settling to say they can go out and do whatever they want. I think because we see this with Jada and Will and other couples, when you leave those doors open, people just naturally are boundary pushers. So if you have no boundaries, people will find a boundary to push. And even though they've had this quote unquote separation, some may say open relationship for the last however many years, they're still running and bumping up against relationship issues because there is no perfect way to just let somebody do what they want to do in a relationship. You have to have some rules, some boundaries. People thrive off of that and really need that. So I just think we just have to be careful. And I think it's brave of Nene to be vulnerable in that way, to express like, these are the things that I'm thinking, because sometimes your mind will lead you down that path just to have someone there. But at the end of the day, your peace of mind, your dignity, your self-respect is not, I don't think is an even exchange for having a companion there. So I think it's the right person, and it has to be a good person, because I think there's another guy, one of the husbands from one of the Real Housewives series, and he's significantly older than his wife. And now they're going through a divorce, but he thought that he could win by letting her, you know, sleep with other men as long as she told him about it and as long as she kept it, you know, whatever. But now she wants to divorce and leave him because she found somebody with more money, more this, more that, and so on and so forth. So I don't think that's always the answer, because relationships are going to do what they're going to do when you don't have the right people and you don't have the right foundation set up.
Go for it, Jay. You got last sentiments, Jay?
Like I said earlier, it's just a difficult situation to even get into someone's head unless, you know, you've been there. Because people do make crazy decisions when they're lonely, right? People make all types of decisions where they feel like, oh, they just need someone to touch, need someone to talk to, even need someone to flirt with, or just need the opposite sex there because I'm used to getting whatever drug comes from that, right? And someone like Nene's been married for a very long time. You know, as you said, Precious, 2 years. It's not even a divorce. This is her husband passed, right? 2 years is a very short time dealing with all those emotions, because you're grieving a loss of a person. You're grieving a loss of your marriage. You're grieving, you know, you didn't expect to lose him. I feel like he was a bit older than her, wasn't he? But you didn't expect to lose it at the age that she is, you know. and you definitely have other men trying to, get a hold of you, so to speak, and you're just thinking, but this is not what I want. Like, am I even ready for that? So it's always a difficult conversation to have, and that's why I asked the question about should you settle, because of the point that's being made. At what point do you say, okay, I don't need that, and I'm just going to go for this? Because it really has to be a nuanced conversation. Because when you were speaking, one of the things I thought about is I can't remember his wife's name, but Deval. I can't remember his wife's name, right?
Ellis. Kadeem.
There you go.
Deval. Yeah.
The other day, he said, my wife, she's someone who has it all, right? She has this, she has that. She doesn't have to do anything. She does it because she wants to. But she's also had to put up with him cheating. So some people will say, okay, she settled for that because she doesn't deserve a man who can cheat, etc. So the whole point for me was on the nuance. What is your decision? Are you generally, going to be happy with this? And if you make that decision, you need to be happy. If you know you can't do it, which is what Nini is saying, then don't do it, because then it's just going to be a greater problem down the road. And in that situation, she stayed, and now she's enjoying good life. She's enjoying soft life, happiness, all that stuff. They're great to watch. But unfortunately, most people, that's not going to be their experience. So this is why, for me, I then look here like, okay, so what is your decision? At what point? At what point can you keep saying you can have it all? I've got this standard. And then it starts meeting the point where, no, I genuinely do feel lonely. What am I going to do? Which is where your barriers then start to come down. This is why I want to look at older people, and the thing is just said in the comments, someone said, I think it was Dahlia, STD is rising quite fast in the elderly. I mean, all they need is companionship. They don't need kids. They're not going to start building business together, a life together. They just want that companionship, right? So they have less barriers to, hit. So for me, it's a very nuanced conversation, but it's a very sensitive one as well. And I really do understand people who are of a certain age dealing with this, and people who mentally and emotionally are more susceptible to that poke that comes when you don't have someone who you can pick up your phone, call at night, or someone who you can, come and help you when you're sick, or someone who can just show you that you care, that they care. So it's a very touchy subject. That's why I keep saying for a time, red pill people, please leave this alone. Leave it alone.
So, guys, we have reached the beautiful end of the relationship conversation. It's at the 2 hour mark, gone slightly over. But no, it's been a good conversation, and I appreciate everybody's thoughts and opinions that they shared on each of the subjects. But I think this was a really good conversation, this last part, because I think it was a real conversation that people are going through. So I'll definitely chop it up and put it in smaller chunks so people can actually consume it that particular way as well. So yeah, honestly, great conversation, guys, and I appreciate the different thoughts. Jay, if I can get you just to summarize, and then we'll sign out on this particular week's episode.
A lot's been said today. Gosh. David Beckham, Victoria Beckham. The main thing I want people to take away is just do what you can as individuals. So when you come together, you can truly be a power couple. If one person is a bit higher and one person is less, that's okay. But when you get together, really become that power couple and hold on to each other. When it comes to Will and Jada, I mean, you can say they tried to do that, but it was very dysfunctional. So please do as much work as you can do before you walk down the aisle. If you're like me or Sean who's been married before, obviously there are crosses that we've had to carry coming out of those situations, of which we are going to be better men when, the next time we do walk down the aisle. But just make sure you put in that work. And now it moves to Nini Leakes and, her situation and her ex-husband. And the main reason is because when you do find that person and you settle down, there's going to be real conversations that you are having, or when you don't find that person, There's going to be real conversations that you are having. When we're young, it's easy. You know, we can laugh about it, we can play about it, we can say we got time. But when we get there, this is when it really starts hitting us. Some earlier than others, but this is where it really starts hitting us. So the best thing I can say in this situation is really hold on to the people you care about the most. Really, you know, if you need to show someone love them properly. If you need to say I like you, say I like you. You know, that goes out to, you know, people who are ready to hear that, but I won't call no names, you know. Yeah, just really, and look after yourself, love yourself as well. One of the things I love Sean saying is sometimes as Christians we can be so super spiritual and say, you know, if anything, if I love Jesus more, I'm gonna be good. But I tend to find a lot of people just use that as an excuse. Jesus is great; he will do wonders. But a lot of people are not being real with themselves in the place that they are at, and can still make some of these mistakes. So my takeaway is, whatever you feel is for you, go ahead and do it. But if you need to take some time out, then take some time out. At the end of the day, it's your life. You know, it's better to take some time to get something right than just to do something for the sake of it and just make your life worse. But that's me. Thank everyone in the chat for joining in. Today hasn't really been controversial, but it's been quite deep. So thank you, everyone.
Not everyday
Love it.
conversation, Jay.
I know. Sometimes I love it though.
Some days just needs the carnage. Well, audience members, thank you so much for joining us today for this conversation. We'll be back in about half an hour's time. I'm going to be back on with Kat from Ready to Love. We're going to, again, have one of those great conversations. And hopefully we can get some good information about the season because, you know, she had a connection with a few people on the show. And we'd love to hear her perspective, especially about the fight that didn't go down with Janelle. So, yeah, we can't wait to have that conversation later tonight. So we'll see you guys again a little bit later. But much love, much appreciation. We'll see you again very soon. Oh, before I go, I forgot to read a super chat. I apologize. KN Kareen super chat says, why are they going public with it now? This was to do with Will and Jada. I do apologize. So I read this earlier. And they kept it secret for 7 years. Just do whatever y'all want. And SYDM. So appreciate that as well. Thank you very much for the super chat. We appreciate that as well. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all. We're gonna see you guys soon, and be easy.